What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time it is, and welcome back to another video with your man, Majaholic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my Rise of the Julia campaign for Total War Rome 2 Divided Impera, episode 14. Today, we are beginning the invasion of Africa. Finally, after all this time, it's been at least 50, 60, maybe even 70 turns of war against Carthage, a lot of that just being a massive stalemate. Now we finally have naval supremacy, at least in the south-central Mediterranean, and we're going to take advantage of that by invading Africa. We need to take the city of Carthage itself. That is our first objective with Africa. After doing that, we'll probably focus on subduing the allies of Carthage, but we'll get to that when we get to that. For now, Carthage itself is currently blockaded by my navy, so I'm going to be swapping them out here in a second to send my major navy down south to try and deal with Thapsus. You may have noticed that there are quite a few armies up around Carthage itself. Those are allies of Carthage that are at war with us, so assaulting Carthage itself directly would be a really bad idea for us. So what we're going to do instead is invade Thapsus. By invading Thapsus, we'll probably liberate it. We'll get an ally that will hopefully have a decent army immediately, and then the Numidians will not be able to resist us. They'll come down and attack, and hopefully we'll obliterate at least half of the troops that are sitting outside Carthage within one battle. Here I sent my whole navy down, well, my first whole navy at least, to take on the Thapsus garrison. They had a fair few ships stationed there, which was a little scary, especially if I was sending an army in. They could have wiped out a lot of my troops for nothing. So what I did was I initiated an assault on the city, and because they're naval vessels, sometimes they'll try to run onto the land, but this time they didn't. They were too slow. So I just had my ships go in, obliterate the enemy navy, and then we just retreated. We didn't try to assault the town with my navy. That would be very pointless, especially with the state that my navy is in. Is fairly depleted. A lot of my ships are at half strength. Here we have an interesting development, and this is going to be something that you guys are probably going to notice as the videos go on, at least for the next few videos, is that reforms are happening all over the world. Here, this is regarding the Celtic people, which is the northwestern barbarians, I should say, has most of the Gauls, I believe, and then all of the British tribes and whatnot. Basically, the enemy is getting better. They're getting more disciplined, they're getting more organized, and that's historically due to encounters with developed nations like Rome. Rome was extremely technologically superior to a lot of the enemies that went up against, at least initially, and because of that, the enemies of Rome learned very quickly. So that is what we're seeing right now. We're going to be seeing a lot more advanced, a lot more disciplined armies coming up against us. Especially going up against the Gauls, which is going to be very interesting later on down the road. But for now, we're dealing with Carthage, and here is the 1st Legion and the 1st Fleet attacking Thapsus itself. Took us a few turns to get over, but we got over here due to our naval supremacy unmolested, and now we're going to take the city very, very easily. You should see that I have a ballista in the 1st Legion now, and I have 4 units of Cretan archers, which are absolutely excellent. We shall be seeing just how excellent they are later on down the line. But for now, I'm not going to show you guys this battle, as it was just too easy and way too straightforward. We lost barely any troops. The archers did fantastic, most of them getting nearly 200 kills, some of them well over, which was awesome, and the ballista itself actually got over 400 kills here, which is pretty monumental, as a good chunk of the garrison gone just from rage. Anyway, moving forward, we liberate the town, and we get the faction of Byzantium liberated. I'm not sure why Byzantium. That's a very strange name to me. I've never heard of the word Byzantium and North Africa being related, but anyway, that usually just makes me think of the Byzantines. But anyway, moving forward, I got them to join the war against the Numidian allies of Carthage. They wouldn't declare war on Carthage itself, though, which was kind of annoying, but it didn't matter too much. And we did get a little bit of money back from them in compensation for giving them the privilege of being free. And here, just as I expected, the Numidians come down and attack us. However, Their armies are massive. They are full stacks. Combined, they make over 10,000 men. Not 1,000, not 1,000. 10,000 troops are coming directly at us. First Legion has 3,500 men, which is decent for a Legion, but compared to such numbers, this is going to be one hell of a tough battle. And my allies, while they do give us a fair few extra numbers, we're going to see just how pointless those numbers are on the battlefield. Either way, we need to win this battle. If we win it decisively, we have a good shot at taking Carthage very, very quickly. See you on the battlefield. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. A massive battle about to take place just outside the outskirts of Thapsus. I deployed my army fairly tightly packed. I wanted to try and keep them all together, but more importantly, I had them deployed on a small hill that was present on the left-hand side of the battlefield, which is awesome for my ballista and my archers to have a really nice firing arc and positioning towards the enemy. I have most of my light infantry up front. That's my Hastati, my Brutian infantry, and my axemen on the flanks. And then I tried to keep my Principes in a second line just behind them on either flank. I split them up 3 and 2. And then of course cavalry on the flanks, general up the back with my archers and my siege equipment. Overall, this is a pretty standard formation, although usually I would deploy the light infantry on the flanks. I kept the Principes on the flanks as I wasn't sure exactly how the enemy were going to approach us. I kind of felt like it'd be better for me to be able to respond to the enemy rather than form a formation and commit to it instantly. But at least that's what my thinking was behind it. Here, you're going to see my cavalry moving forward. My ballista, when bombarding the enemy, I was trying to goad them into attacking me, and they weren't doing it, and neither was my allies. As you can see, they're just sitting in the corner of the battlefield, and spoiler alert, that's what they're going to do the entire battle. I don't know why they weren't interested in helping us. The allies usually are in battles that I play. So for whatever reason, these people who have just liberated, by the way, were so ungrateful they couldn't even help us on the battlefield, so we're not going to forget that. The enemy army didn't really respond too well to my cavalry charge. They didn't end up moving forward from that, which sucks, so I just pulled them back very quickly. And we're going to try and reform the army to deal with the new formation that's coming at us. You should be able to see behind the first line of Numidian infantry coming towards us, or at least in front of us. They're actually getting more reinforcements coming in from behind them. And so what they're doing with those reinforcements is forming one massive giant line to basically envelop us. Here you can see a really good shot of the enemy's allies catching up. They are hitting us with some archers at this time, FYI, although their archers aren't nearly as good as ours, but they will do damage to my light troops, which you can see already on my Hastati. And then all of a sudden, the Numidians commit to a full-on all-out charge. Their entire massive line just commits to a massive charge across all of our lines. I tried to have my ballista focus on trying to kill the enemy general, try and snipe him a little bit. It might be a little bit corny, but it's corny for a reason. It works. People do it a lot because it does work. At least it can work if your ballista behaves nicely, although my one isn't going to. And he doesn't have a lot of information. He's been hitting the enemy fairly constantly throughout the whole time. I was struggling to figure out what I should do with my ballista just because the enemy is so awkwardly positioned towards us. Usually you want your ballista or siege equipment in general to focus on clumps of troops, but here there was no clump of troops. There was just a massive line, so they are going to try and focus on the enemy general, but we'll see how that goes. Here on the left-hand flank, you can see the Numidians charged at us, and then at the last second, they broke away from the charge and then began running around us, which is even worse than directly charging us, as they're already trying to outflank us, which is horrible. And so what I do here is something a little risky. I'm still not sure if it was the right call, but what I do is I break my formation and I charge out at them. And I do that so they don't have time to run all the way around my line and outflank us. And it does end up working, but I don't know if it was the right call. Let me know what you guys, how you guys would respond. I would really love to know. In general, feel free to let me know how you would play differently to how I do. Always looking for feedback, and I just love seeing what people's different opinions are. Anyway, the center of our line was actually holding fairly well. We did lose one unit here. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen he's about to rout. But besides that, we're doing fairly well. The main thing here is trying to win the left and right flank. The left flank is going fairly well. I was luckily able to capture all of the troops into a battle formation before they were able to outflank me. So my Thessalian cavalry are going to have a good time charging into the rear of them. As I said, in the center here, we're doing fairly well with a lot of my troops not being committed to fights, although we do have one little gap that has formed, so I need to try and deal with that quickly. The right hand flank are my equites, companion equites, charging in on the right, but they're not really going to be doing too well with their charges. The Thessalian cavalry over here have a downhill charge into the backs of the Numidian troops, and they also are shock cavalry designed specifically to charge into enemies and do a lot of damage, so they're going to get a lot more kills and a lot faster. The center was still crumbling. As you can see, my allies are still doing nothing, as I did throughout the entire battle. But that gap that formed in the center of my line was starting to crumble. And so because of that, I actually had to commit my general to trying to charge in and sway the tide of the battle in our favor. This is basically all down to my cavalry. If my cavalry can get some routing going on, then we have a good chance to win the battle. If we can't get them to rout, then we're going to get eaten away. The enemy just has so much more troops than us. On the left-hand side here, though, you're going to start to see a fair few Numidian troops starting the rout. We're actually getting groups of our troops free. And because they're free, they're able to push through the enemy line and outflank them. So we're going to be doing that on the left-hand flank. On the right flank, things are a little bit more dire. Like I said, my cavalry aren't nearly as useful as they are on the left-hand flank. And I had to commit my Cretan archers to actually fighting a melee as my right-hand flank was crumbling so quickly. It was really not doing well. It's really all down to this left-hand flank. We see a lot of the enemy troops are routing. We just need to make sure that they don't come back from routing. And we need to finish off what troops were still routing. A few moments later, and the Thessalians get an excellent charge, and the entire left-hand flank is in a full rout. They're not shattered yet, and you're going to see me sending troops to pursue the enemy units that are routing. That's to make sure that they shatter and they do not come back into the fight, which is an absolute must-have. My general is still charging into the enemy here. He isn't getting a lot of kills, and the enemy are peppering him with arrows, which is very bad. We've seen how bad that can be before, back with Lucius Libo, back in like episode, 6 or something? That went horrible, so I'm going to try and pull him out as soon as possible and not let my general get hit by archers. Here, the entire left flank is almost entirely shattered. There is one unit there that's being a little pesky. My cavalry are just chasing down one more unit. However, for all intents and purposes, the enemy's left flank has crumbled, which is awesome. In the center, though, things are still the same. My general is starting to get a little bit more kills. I had him charging in as the enemy archers finally ran out of ammo. But the main thing here is that troops from my left flank are starting to come in and reinforce the center, and this is where we're going to start to see the Numidians just crumble under the pressure. They really can't handle getting surrounded by outclassed troops. For our troops are far better than us. The main thing that they had going in this battle was the amount of skirmishes they had and the massive amount of troops they had. It really was absolutely crazy. You'll notice that there are no close-ups in this battle, and that's because my game couldn't handle it. It was a very laggy fight. And my computer is excellent. It shouldn't be laggy at all, especially on a game like Rome 2. But because Rome 2 is just a 32-bit game, it does have very limited hardware restrictions. So that's why it might have been a bit laggy for you guys. Apologies for that, but that's why there were also no zooms in. I did try and remedy this for future battles by changing some settings around, so hopefully it's better and improved. But anyway, here you can see just a massive amount of bodies, and it's not just in the line, but it's behind the line too. All of those little white pecks on the ground, they're all enemy bodies. None of our troops were white. The only ones that were wearing white were the Cretan archers, and we lost very few of them. So it's just absolutely insane how many bodies are littering the battlefield. Now, we do win the battle. As you can see, the enemy's army did crumble from the routing. And another thing that I want to mention is that I'm going to keep in some of these loading screens. I'll keep them in for major battles that we manually fight, so you guys can see the statistics yourselves. Here there isn't anything specific to point out other than how insanely good our Thessalian cavalry did, over 700 kills. That is incredible. And our mainline troops did well pretty much across the board. Principes, of course, doing the best. Unfortunately, the Numidian troops are going to escape with a good chunk of their armies. However, 10,000 troops going up against our 3,500. I can't complain too much. I'm just happy to win at this point and not lose any troops, which is very lucky. It is, however, going to slow down our invasion of Carthage. We're not actually going to be able to assault the city with this army. So now our main goal is to finish off these two armies, run them down, and then we'll pull back the First Legion to Sicily, which does suck. It's going to set us back quite a few turns, but we're not going to replenish our army in foreign territory, so that's really a no-brainer. We have to fall back. And I'm also going to reform the army into something a little bit more efficient. Recently, I was on the Total War Center forums, and I've been talking with some people about what they think Romans should be using in this early of a playthrough, at least this time of the playthrough, I should say. And a lot of people were claiming that you should use Hastati more than Principes. I actually prefer to do the opposite, and I prefer to go with full-on Principe armies rather than using heaps of Hastati. And when I pull back the First Legion to Acragas, you're actually going to see me do that. I'm going to remove all of my Hastati, all of the Brutian infantry. I will keep the Axemen though, as they're very useful. And I'll be calling in some Principes from Rome itself in a small army, just to supplement the First Legion. Anyway, here, after that absolutely embarrassing loss, to be quite frank, the Massili, which is the faction we were fighting, aka the Numidians, come to us asking for peace. Here you're going to see them actually refuse my peace offering, but in the same turn, or when I actually got to my turn, after this end turn phase, they accepted the exact same peace anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. Here we see another historical character come into the family, Sextus Julius Caesar. Now this is the supposed confirmed quote-unquote ancestor to Julius Caesar. He's even been argued to be the son of Lucius Libo, the historical character that we lost again, I believe in episode 6 or something like that. Lost him a fair while ago when he was fighting the Gauls in the north. But this is pretty cool. One thing to keep in mind is that he is just a baby when they make these announcements, so we're going to have to wait quite a while till we actually get him. But when we do get him being a Caesar, we're obviously going to adopt him instantly, and probably even make him head of the family if we can somehow, which would be awesome. Maybe not the most historically accurate thing to do, but I don't care. It's just what I want to do. This is Rise of the Julia family, is it not? Moving forward, I wanted to figure out what was happening around Carthage, and as you can see, the other Numidian faction that's allied with Carthage has 15,000 troops over here. Not just 10,000, 15,000. They have insane numbers. Their troops are decent. They have some spearmen that are heavily armored. They have some good skirmishers that are going to do a lot of damage against our troops, which is very hard to deal with, especially if you don't have a lot of cavalry. So we need to try and take the city without fighting those armies, at least at the same time. Maybe we could split them up somehow, or maybe we could have them assault the city. But anyway, like I said, I'm sending the First Legion back. However, I'm also going to be sending the Third Legion back to Thapsus almost immediately. I do that because I want both of my armies over there. Sicily itself has calmed down a fair bit. It's not really rebelling anymore, which is awesome. And I just need to commit fully to this invasion. I can't just send one army and hope for the best. I really need to commit to this, and we need to get the job done, and that's how we're going to do it. Right now, Carthage is our main target, and so I'm going to have the Third Legion stay near Thapsus, but once they land, and once the First Legion lands and joins them, we're actually going to commit to marching up the coastline to attacking the city. Here's an interesting development. The full stack army that appeared in Carthage somehow is attacking my small navy that's blockading the port. This is an excellent opportunity to wipe out the main stack army of Carthage that is sitting inside the city defending it, and so we're going to commit to it, even if it means that we'll probably lose a navy. I don't care. We just need to kill as many of these troops as we can, especially those elephants. They could be devastating in close quarters of a city. So I do fight it manually. Again, I'm not going to show you guys this. It's pretty straightforward. We did lose the entire navy, even the general, which is pretty hectic, but it's not too bad. He was a member of the Juliet family, but he was like just a cousin or something. It doesn't matter too much. We're not going to lose too much respect or gravitas for it. But the main thing that we do get is wiping out most of the enemy army, which is awesome. And again, you can see Vasily coming back and joining the fight. They groveled before us just to get some peace. They even paid us handsomely, and now they're already back at war with us, so that's funny. But anyway, another interesting development, though, is the Veneti have lost the town that's connecting their territory to ours, hence we lost trade with them. So we come up here to check it out, exactly what happened, and the Adressian kingdom took Batavium from the Veneti, which is a little disturbing. We were previously at war with the Adressians. We did get a very favorable peace, which resulted even in a non-aggression pact against us, which is awesome, so hopefully they're not going to immediately declare war on us and betray that agreement. However, we do need to be wary of that moving forward. And just a little side note here, you can see the Iberian reforms happening for the Iberian tribes, which is not good to see. We hit the year 268 BC. This is a few turns later on, after the first legion has started to recuperate. The Principes have arrived down in Sicily, and we're getting ready to invade Carthage once again. But as you can see, not really too much happening in 268 BC. Again, just preparing for the lead up to the First Punic War historically. But as you can see, we're already well underway with the Punic War. Here's the First Legion. They lost all of their hastati, which is, to be honest, fairly good. It's basically like a Marian army already. This is how my Marian armies are going to look. We're going to have a lot of legionnaires, a little bit of cavalry, decent archers, and potentially siege equipment, although I do not want to exploit siege equipment and how badly the AI responds to it too much. So we're just going to use it for taking big cities like Carthage and future ones that will happen as the campaign develops.
How can I be of assistance?
I have my spy chilling up here in the mountains. I send them back down to the western edge of the city, and we can still see that the Medians have their 15,000 strong army, or armies I should say, sitting just outside the outskirts of Carthage. So this means that basically once we attack the city and take it, we're going to be under immediate assault from the Massilians, which is a little scary. I'm not really sure how that's going to go. They don't have many archers, but they do have some skirmishers, which could do a lot of damage in close quarters and cities. But either way, we're going to take the city. I'm sick of waiting. I'm sick of not getting much done with this war with Carthage. I want to get the job done. So we're sending in the 1st and the 3rd Legion. And in addition to that, the 1st Fleet will be joining us on the siege of Carthage. Finally, here we go. One thing to note is that I'm not going to be waiting any turns for siege equipment to be deployed, so we're going to be relying on just a couple ladders that we can build quickly, and my ballista to get me into the city, in addition to our navy landing inside the enemy's port. Carthage has a very formidable garrison, though this isn't going to be an easy fight by any means at all, and we do need to be careful with how I deploy my troops. But either way, finally, the siege of Carthage is underway. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Carthage. Finally we are here. I've been dreaming of this, man. Ever since the playthrough started, I've been wanting to take the city itself, and now we are finally here. Wow, it's about time, huh? An absolutely massive and beautiful city, but sadly it's gonna be a crumbling ruin very soon. Out here in the distance, you'll see my army forming up. There isn't really too much in terms of strategy for this assault, especially because we don't have much siege equipment. We only have a couple ladders and some ballista, but the navy in particular is going to play an important role. Here you can see my axemen are manning the ladders, my ballista are next to them. They're going to punch a hole in the left-hand side of the gate and on the right, hopefully, if they have enough ammunition, we'll see. But that's my plan anyway. Over here, the Principes and the Cretan archers. These archers are incredibly famous throughout all Divide at Impera playthroughs. I'd argue that you would not ever see a Let's Player of Total War never use these. They're just too fantastic, they're just too good. They're too cost efficient. They're just good all around. And we're going to see just how good they are in the battles to come. Here are my Principes. They're forming up basically like legionnaires right now. That's how I'm going to be using them in my armies from now on. For the most part, we'll be using some Hastati as well in some armies, but I'm going to be trying not to, because I don't really care for them. I prefer to have an army like this, which is far more solid. A lot more expensive, mind you, but far more solid. Now, I had my Cretan archers form up on the shore as I was kind of expecting the enemy's ships to attack us. Usually when you assault Carthage, they either attack you straight away, depending on what kind of ships they are. If they're long range like these ones are, they're archer ships. Or they will just go into their own harbour and man the walls and whatnot. And so I just had my archers here just as a fail-safe, just in case, and it turns out it's exactly what we needed. So I would always recommend you do that when you're assaulting big cities like this that do have naval garrisons. Always be prepared. You saw my navy coming in and on the far side of the map, and then here is the 3rd Legion coming in. Sadly, however, we're only going to get the cavalry and the pikemen from the 3rd Legion. The 3rd Legion is basically the Greek Legion, to be honest. It has a bunch of pikemen and then a bunch of Sicilian infantry. It isn't very Roman whatsoever. Even the cavalry are all Greek. But still, they could be helpful if we need them. I know I could have withdrawn them from the field in favor of more favorable troops, such as the Brutian infantry, which are swordsmen, and they're basically like cheaper Hastati units. However, there can be a glitch that occurs sometimes when you withdraw some troops, especially when you're playing on the ultra or large unit size, where a unit will retreat to the edge of the map and then it will just disperse and they will start running back to the battlefield and die. Which is kind of dumb. Here you're seeing our 2 holes in the wall open up. We do get 2 holes, one on the left, one on the right hand side. I'm going to try and spread out my attack to make sure the Carthaginians can't focus their defense anywhere in particular. Because as you can see, there are a lot of troops behind these walls. This is not going to be an easy siege whatsoever, or easy assault rather. It is a mix of light infantry, such as light spearmen, hoplites, and skirmishers. And those skirmishers are going to come back to bite us soon. I march my Principes up slowly. There's no reason to rush. The towers aren't going to do too much damage, at least initially. They can do a lot of damage over time. However, I'm trying to gamble that my troops need to be well rested rather than have them run up and still take fire anyway. Before we have them commit to assaulting the holes in the walls now though, I do have them all throw their peeler first. At least all 3 units that I send up to each hole. Always best to get your peel off before you engage in combat. That's how the Romans fought historically too, and they did it for a reason. It's to try and disrupt the enemy, try and kill as many of them without any real cost to you, as why not? Why wouldn't you do that? We do get a few kills, not too many. The wall does stop a few of our peeler from going through, but either way, the assault is now fully commencing. We are now charging through the breaches, and over here on the left hand side, my ladders are starting to commit. One problem though is that the right hand ladder bugged out in typical Rome Total War fashion. No unit that I sent up there would go up the ladder for whatever reason, so I'm actually going to have to send the axemen to the left hand ladder, which isn't horrible because that left hand ladder is actually unopposed. And here is my navy coming in with its incredibly important task of assaulting the city behind the walls. As you saw there, the tower next to our one landing that we get, it was also destroyed, which is excellent. Means that our troops can get in very quickly unmolested. Here though, you're going to see our left-hand assault is doing really badly, almost terrible. And that's because the enemy skirmishers are bombarding my Principes while they're stuck in fighting. To try and handle that a little bit better, I tried to have my axemen all assault this one archer unit up here on the wall. And I wanted to commit them and get them in and get the job done so they could come down and flank these troops that are bombarding my Principes. As you can see, that one unit was nearly wiped out. But the axemen are going to take far longer than what I would like. On the right here, we are still sending in more ships. This is our 2nd set that we are sending in. The naval units are a lot smaller than my typical land units, however, they still have peeler. I should say. And that can be very useful, and just, they're very good troops. They're very good quality. So even though there isn't that many of them, they're still going to hold out nearly just as well as our land troops would. So they're going to prove to be instrumental in taking the city, in fact. Here they're taking the one tower that had a shot on the troops as they were landing. And then we're going to be sending them in. The Carthaginians do respond to our little incursion here by sending some skirmishers forward. However, like I was saying, the peeler from these troops is just insane. Not only is it devastating once they actually connect with the skirmishers or whatever his unit is throwing its peeler at, but they also have a lot of ammunition for some reason. I'm not too sure why. Perhaps it's just because the actual number of the unit is fairly small compared to a land unit. But either way, it doesn't matter. I'm a happy man because now we have a lot of peeler coming in, getting us a lot of kills before we commit to melee. Here you can see the Carthaginians again responding to our incursions from the boats by sending in some spearmen and other skirmishers against us. And now this is really good because I needed these skirmishers to get distracted. Now that they were distracted, I was having my reinforcements form up and get ready to send in a second wave of peeler and a second assault on the left-hand breach. Here my general is also landing as well. I felt like we may as well commit him too. Why not? A few moments later, you're going to see just how useful this one unit is. We're starting to really breach through this right-hand breach in the wall. However, we're still kind of stuck. We're at that point where we're slowly starting to turn it in our balance. And then the general of the fleet comes in and he bombards the enemy in the back with some peeler, and then he's going to get a nice recharge in, and that's going to be really devastating. They won't rout instantly, but they're going to get pretty close. As you can see, the peeler is just insane. I know I talk about it so much, but it really is such a big deal. Here I have my cavalry come into the city. I had one of my units of axemen capture the main gate, and now they're going to be forming up and trying to kill this one arch unit that was trying to revive their tower. And over here, I had my levy units off my navy land, and I was going to send them around to bombard the enemy in the back. However, we stumbled upon the enemy general, and for whatever reason, he really wasn't committing to a fight. I don't know why, he was just tripping out, but either way, that's going to be an easy kill on the enemy general, as you can see in the top left corner of the screen. Now, with the enemy general getting killed, the garrison is basically going to crumble. As you can see here, the right-hand breach has completely retreated. Well, it's been a complete success, I should say, and the enemy garrison is completely retreated. There are some units up on the walls that we do have to deal with, and the main force of the troops of the Carthaginians is devoted to the other breach in the wall. So what we're going to do is basically really slowly and really methodically outflank them and just cut them down. It's really simple, to be honest. There isn't too many crazy tactics that need to be used. We just need to do it. That's what a lot of battles come down to. You don't really have to outsmart the enemy too much. You just need to get involved, get in there, and be really methodical about it, which is what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to just inch my troops in just slightly around their units. Like, as you can see here, my cavalry are going to try and slip past that one unit. And they do, and they come around and they help out my levies deal with that other archer unit they were immediately against. Here we're going to get a nice recharging. You're going to see the cavalry over there. Again, it's nothing too fancy, but it's really just methodical. You just need to think about these things when you're committing to fights. How can you gain an advantage that will really get the battle going in your favor? Sure, your troops might be better, but why not make it so you lose less troops in the process? And that is exactly what we're doing here. With those two units charging into the enemy Carthaginians, they just can't handle it. They all rout at the same time. That entire bunch of troops just ends up running away instantly. The fight is still going on around the breach, however, a lot of the enemy troops have already routed or been killed. When they do rout, they are routing outside of the wall, so they're pretty much getting entirely slaughtered, and with that, we win the battle. I ended up taking the victory point as we just had one enemy Carthaginian left, and with that, Carthage has fallen. Here we see the statistics screen if you guys would like to have a look. We did have a commenter ask for this, so I'll be doing these from now on for major battles only. I know I said it earlier, but I just want to reiterate. There are the statistics for you. If you'd like, you can go through them. You can see our archers didn't do as well as I would have hoped, but that's because we didn't really have them fight the city. They were just fighting the ships, so they're fine. It's not a big deal at all. As you can see, all of our units survived. The Principes took a beating, but they did get a lot of kills. There's a lot of veterancy that came from that battle on its own, and with that we have a decisive victory, as it should have been. We did have a lot more troops. We had 9,400, although about half of that was actually on the field, as the 3rd Legion didn't really have many troops come in. But regardless, we just utterly crushed them. There isn't really too much to say. Like I said, it's very simple. A lot of the time it's just a matter of doing it. Now here I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the city. However, with the situation, or with the situation of the war being the way it is, I wanted to keep the city. So what we're going to do is we're going to loot it. We're going to get a lot of money for it, which is very nice. Not as much as I would have hoped, mind you, but it was still very good. And with that, we now have Carthage itself. We have a massive Numidian force just to our west that will almost certainly attack the city when I press that end turn button. But we are going to have to wait until the next episode for that. Here we have a massive step forward in the First Punic War against Carthage. This is very much a good sign. Hopefully this means that we can invade the rest of Africa and really get the ball rolling in terms of wrapping up Carthage. However, they do have a lot of territory, especially in Iberia. I think they have nearly all of Spain right now. So the First Punic War, while we have made a major step forward, First Punic War is far from ending. However, like I said, we're going to have to wait till next episode for that. So thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.